Now we have an exciting lineup of speakers, so let's get right to it. First, we're going to hear from Mick Barry in Ireland. Take it away, Mick.
Hi, Toya. Hi, comrades. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. So we're here after a week of the virtual Marxist University, a week discussing our ideas. Trotsky pointed out that the party which went on to lead the Russian Revolution was not the party which started off possessing the dynamite, that was the social revolutionaries, but instead was the party which started off possessing dialectical materialism, ideas. James Cannon observed that the party of young people, which based itself on Marxism in the United States in 1919, the newly formed Communist Party, within a few years completely overtook the militant group with far greater experience in the class struggle that did not base itself on Marxism. In other words, the industrial workers of the world, the IWW. So for us, ideas are vital. Philosophers have already interpreted the world. The point, however, is to change it, said Marx. For us, theory is a guide to action, and the decade which opens up before us now will provide plenty of opportunity for action. So let's start with what we know. We know that the decade has started with a pandemic. The pandemic has revealed which class it is which plays the vital role in society. It is the class which contains within its ranks the nurses, the cleaners, the bus drivers, the retail staff, namely the working class. The pandemic has also revealed to millions the uselessness of so many representatives of the ruling elite, the Trumps, the Johnsons, the Bolsonaros. And for others, maybe less in numbers, but so significant, it has raised really serious questions about the very system itself. In the wake of the pandemic comes a Great Depression, a downturn that would have occurred with or without the virus, but clearly one which is now greatly exacerbated by it. This depression will cast tens of millions into the pit of mass unemployment and worsen a social inequality already at all-time historic high rates. It will create the basis for social explosions, which will affect far more societies than not. A glimpse of the kind of social explosions we can expect has already been given to us this year by the tremendous global revolt against racism. All the while, another crisis, the crisis of climate catastrophe, draws closer and nearer. The fall in emissions caused by economic downturn will not be nearly enough to avert a reckoning, most likely in the decade's second half. So, pandemic, depression, climate catastrophe, these are the known knowns. Will the 2020s include war in advanced countries, revolution, and if so, where? Another pandemic? We cannot say for certain, but clearly we can say that the 2020s will be a decade of crisis and social explosions. In Ireland, we have used our ideas as a guide to action. Action on the water charges, action on repeal of the anti-abortion laws, action to win parliamentary and municipal positions. This mass work has brought us many gains. It has also brought us challenges and problems. All sections will need to follow through on two key themes of this VMU. Number one, increase the emphasis on political education. And number two, the bridge to the working class is first and foremost the youth. Turn to the youth again and again and again.
Camaradas, passamos a semana discutindo em várias sessões como lutar contra as opressões. Como lutar contra a violência, como lutar pela liberdade das mulheres, negros e negras, LGBTQI+, como garantir que a gente possa viver a plenitude das nossas capacidades, viver a inteireza da nossa vida. Para isso nós resgatamos memória, a gente trouxe experiência de cada sessão, a gente pensou como intervir coletivamente, porque nós somos uma organização viva, uma organização da classe, uma organização que precisa dar resposta para os problemas reais. Mas é importante precisar que nós, da Alternativa Socialista Internacional, somos aqueles e aquelas que entendemos que a luta de combate às opressões ela não está dissociada de maneira alguma da luta de combate à exploração. A nossa luta é uma luta anticapitalista, é uma luta por um novo sistema e é uma luta que envolve corpos, pessoas concretas que estão vivendo nesse sistema terrível, nessa máquina de moer gente, de maneira ainda mais brutal as ações capitalistas. Vivemos agora, estamos vivendo ainda aqui no Brasil, um dos momentos mais drásticos. Nós costumamos dizer, não vamos morrer nem de fome e nem de vírus. Vamos lutar. Essa é a única certeza que a gente tem. Mas os corpos mortos, as pessoas atingidas nessa pandemia, na sua grande maioria, são pessoas da classe trabalhadora, são negros e negras, e são as mulheres, crianças, vítimas de violência dentro de casa, de violência doméstica, um índice que infelizmente aumentou de maneira absurda. Não só no Brasil, no mundo, mas no conjunto da América Latina de maneira ainda mais contundente. O que a gente vive agora, né, é um momento que deixou o capitalismo nu. Então todas as suas violências, elas foram potencializadas, as desigualdades sociais e as opressões contra o nosso povo. Então nós estamos aqui em luta, em marcha, e de modo coletivo construindo essa ferramenta. Aqui no Brasil, nós vivemos, além da pandemia, além de toda essa crise, um governo de extrema-direita. Um governo que não só retira direitos, mas um governo que está produzindo retrocessos inimagináveis até então. O Bolsonaro contou, inclusive provocou milhares de mulheres. O Ele Não foi um exemplo gigantesco da forma e qual é o caminho para derrotar Bolsonaro. As lutas precisam ser massivas. A gente vive agora um momento de lutas de vanguarda, de lutas simbólicas, mas que daqui a pouco essas lutas tendem a se transformar em lutas muito mais massivas e expressivas, porque são lutas em defesa da nossa vida, em defesa daqueles e daquelas que produzem a riqueza desse mundo. E essa luta é encampada por nós, com coragem, com força, por todos nós que estamos aqui. Queremos convidar a todos e todas que se juntem a nós nessa luta, porque essa luta é a única capaz, de fato, de apresentar uma perspectiva de futuro. Nós queremos futuro, nós nos queremos vivos, e queremos vivos numa sociedade que caibam todos nós. Então é isso, nós lutamos por uma outra sociedade onde a opressão e a exploração não estão dissociadas, afinal, os sujeitos não são apartados. O capitalismo sabe muito bem disso. E nós socialistas estamos organizando, estamos nos preparando, estamos lutando para dar uma resposta à altura das necessidades que estão colocadas hoje. Estamos juntos e juntas.
On May 25th, the United States joined the annals of the recent history of the global working class revolt against neoliberalism that began in 2019. George Floyd's 6-year-old daughter stated, and I quote, "My daddy changed the world." With COVID-19 and the Great Economic Depression, the revolt centered around Black lives and a rejection of racial oppression and law enforcement terror. But it was so much more. It was an indictment against Trump, capitalism, the legacy of racism. The banner of Black Lives Matter is a powerful, life-affirming call, but we have to take it much further. Socialist Alternative, ISA, pivoted its work to take on the key challenges in question. This youthful, working class, multiracial rebellion, the largest in a generation, posed for the American working class, poor and oppressed, that enough was enough. Demands like defund police, police out of our labor movement, more protective PPE for healthcare workers and all workers on the front lines, elaborating a workers' economic relief program, taking on Amazon and Jeff Bezos in this moment has heightened and strengthened our organization and comrades, theoretically, organizationally, and politically. As we took these ideas and demand among the true arbitrators of our program, working class approach, and ideas to the working class. the banner of ISA and socialist alternative and genuine Bolshevism was raised to meet this moment of American history. A mighty specter haunts American capitalism and bourgeois democracy. It will not be a straight line. The road to a socialist world will have twists and turns, but it is moments like this that test the resolve of a revolutionary organization and international. During the civil rights movement, there was a very famous saying utilized by civil rights workers, and I quote, "We won't let nothing turn us around." Today, Karl Marx wrote the preface to the first edition of Capital in German, July 25th, 1867. History is upon us, comrades. So let's seize the time for George Floyd's 6-year-old daughter and future generations as we embark on the construction of socialism and workers' democracy to cleanse the world of capitalism's filth and vileness, of racism, homophobia, transphobia, poverty, greed, and environmental destruction. We have a world to win. Thank you.
We are living through very special times. We are holding this school in the middle of an ongoing pandemic that we would probably have to live with for some time to come. We are in the middle of an economic depression, and at the same time, we have experienced enormous movement. As we have done many times before, we have adapted to the current situation and found new opportunities. Every Sunday for the past number of months, we have had live broadcasts on current topics with participants from our different sections. This week, more than 1,600 people have taken part in meetings and discussions. We have, in isolation, kept in touch and turned outwards. We have continued the struggle when so many others have shut down. In January and February, we transformed into ISA at our World Congress with almost 100 participants. We still have a lot to discuss, and we will make mistakes in the future as well. But we will learn from those mistakes and build a stronger and healthier organization. We are now breaking new ground and growing. In the United States, the comrades have recruited over 300 members this year alone. In England, Wales, and Scotland, 1/3 of our members are completely new to our organization. Belgium recruited 30 new members at their latest summer camp. We also have new openings. In Sudan, we have several comrades. In Mexico, we have a group of members and several contacts. In Argentina, Tanzania, and Croatia, where we do not yet have sections, we have promising contacts. Even though ISA has only been around for such a short time, we have already started working as an international in its truest sense. During the climate demonstrations, we intervened with a common political program, with a common logo, and we constantly exchange strategies. We have recently tried to develop our feminist work more. In addition to the ongoing discussions on the Women's Bureau, we have launched a common international Rosa banner, a way to put forward our socialist feminism and coordinate us as an international. Before 8th of March, comrades from several countries went to intervene in Seville. During a single weekend, we sold over 300 newspapers and got 88 names or contacts. We will need to organize internationally planned interventions such as these. That the comrades in the United States managed to shake up the entire power elite by having Sharma Savant re-elected when their candidate was swimming in money shows what we can achieve. And the victory of the Tax Amazon campaign shows that it's not a one-off thing. We currently exist in around 30 countries. We want and need to grow more. Where we exist, we have an influence. Our politics, how we act, and our history gives us an edge and a political weight that many others lack. Imagine what we could accomplish if we had 60 countries instead of 30, or if we were twice as strong in all the countries where we already exist. In order to be prepared for when new openings emerge, we need to grow now. In several places, of course, chances have already passed us by. chances we could have taken advantage of if we had been stronger. Right now, our expenses are not so high because we cannot travel. But when the restrictions change, our international full-time staff and other comrades will have to travel to the various sections to help build our international. We want to create new traditions with closer contact, more visits, and more exchange. We need to expand our international full-time staff by at least 2 people this year and build a new international center in Brussels. More full-timers and more travel costs money. Money we do not yet have. Money we need to raise now. Our goal for this collection is 90,000 euros. It is extremely ambitious, but equally necessary. This will be the largest collection in our history to date. For many of you, COVID-19 has meant a tougher financial situation, and many are already making great sacrifices. Something that is a lot for one person is not much for another. Is there anything else you can do? Do you know someone who is a sympathizer who has not yet been asked? But this collection is not just about money. We are so many who spend much of our lives in this struggle. That is why I turn to all those who are not yet members. You are needed. We need more members. We need you in the building of our party in order to create the absolute best conditions for a socialist world.
The China-US imperialist conflict has been escalating during our VMU. China closed down an US consulate in Chengdu in retaliation to the US, which closed down a Chinese consulate in Houston. The US claimed that they no longer recognize the right of China in the South China Sea. The US is increasing its military presence in the South China Sea and Taiwan. The ruling class is preparing war as their worst possible scenario. The word Cold War can even probably be outdated in the next period. A limited Cold War proxy military exchange is possible. The US supported and encouraged India in the recent border conflict with China. India and China are nuclear powers. Ultimately, imperialist struggle is class struggle launched by the ruling class against the working class in the world. The situation shows how urgent the working class needs a global party. Only with a global revolutionary party, the working class can have an independent force fighting against the global capitalist system. In the national security law introduced by Chinese dictatorship in Hong Kong, one of the main charges is collude with foreign forces. It not only means those liberals who work with foreign right-wing governments, but also cross-border working class solidarity. Xi Jinping dictatorship fears that struggle around the world can inspire mainland Chinese workers to challenge their dictatorial rule. And indeed, more and more socialist youth in China are inspired by events like movement in Hong Kong last year, global feminist movement, Black Lives Matter movement, or Yellow Vest movement. Though China is also part of the new process of struggle becoming globalizing, as we have discussed this week. Youth in China need to take a struggle to overcome the so-called the Great Firewall, which is the censorship of the regime, to get any real picture outside the country. There is an eagerness for learning lessons from movement around the world. The name of our international is known amongst tens of thousands of socialist youth in China. Of course, this number is still only a small minority in a country with a population of 1.4 billion. They are mainland leftist socialists translating our international articles, and they do this with risks. When mainland new members in China join us, we stress they are joining our whole international. We also organized a rescue campaign to save our comrades who were persecuted in China. This could not be done without our international. We launched our global campaign to stop repression in Hong Kong and China in 2017. We would like to launch a new one later this year, now starting with internal discussions to prepare ISA members. We are the only international socialist organization doing it. the other left has been absent in the movement in Hong Kong. And now Hong Kong is on the front line of the power struggle of the two biggest superpowers. The passivity of the other left allow imperialists and pro-US liberals in Hong Kong to pretend to be global human rights fighters. Pompeo made a hardline speech yesterday against China, calling the so-called free world to fight. Pompeo's free world includes India, where the racist Modi wants to crack down on democratic rights, and the US, where Trump wants the same. None of these governments stands for real democracy. Now there is a big illusion among mass people in Hong Kong seeing Pompeo as a hero. These imperialists try to derail international solidarity against Chinese dictatorship to become supporting Western imperialism and capitalism. So our political role is not only to give a working class voice in the fight against dictatorship, but also to expose and fight the influence of the right wing. With the clear politics and fighting spirit of ISA, our organization can be a spark in this explosive situation. Thank you.
Hi, comrades. My name's Jackie Berry. I'm an intensive care nurse and a member of ISA in England, Wales and Scotland. As a revolutionary socialist and a trade unionist working in the British National Health Service, internationalism for me is not a luxury item. It is part of the day-to-day toolkit that we use to intervene politically. On a given day, the shop floor of my intensive care unit is staffed by economic refugees from austerity-stricken Southern Europe, a generation of nurses who grew up in the rubble of the former Soviet Union, young women from India who see working in the British NHS as part of living out their feminist dreams, and a small but vocal contingent of Filipino ex-Maoists. My role, and the role of any worker Bolshevik, is to draw those strands together into a common struggle for a socialist world. The pandemic tightened the bonds between those threads. We went through a common misery. We all held the hands of strangers to stop them from dying alone. We all wore masks for so long that the skin on our face broke down. We all came to work every day not knowing how long our PPE stocks would last. And this bound us together in a common struggle. Any comrade could find themselves in a situation where they have to make a difficult call. Will I treat my patients? Do I drive this bus? Should I hold my underwear up in my national parliament? These are all difficult calls, but they are preliminary difficult calls in the context of a class struggle that is the history of hundreds of thousands of difficult calls. And comrades, you need to know that when you are in the ISA, you don't make those difficult calls on your own. You make them as part of a party of world revolution. You make it with the distilled experience of the workers' movement from around the world as your guide. You make it with the knowledge that it will feed into our collective understanding, that it will help sharpen our perspectives, that it will broaden our programme and our struggle for socialism. This is what it means to be a party of class struggle, to prepare the political instruments to dismantle the destructive capitalist system and build a socialist world. Thank you.
Comrades, this first ever virtual Marxist University says a lot about our revolutionary organization. The enormous development, the political seriousness, and the enthusiasm of our members. While it is never our preference to go virtual, we responded to the pandemic's roadblock preventing an in-person summer school by creating this powerful alternative. We have shown again and again how the working class can apply the science of Marxism to the rapid developments in this historic period of capitalist crisis and upheaval. Twice, International Socialist Alternative has dealt a historic defeat to the richest man in the world. First, in our re-election campaign last year in Seattle, then 3 weeks ago when we won the Amazon tax. We won despite the path to our ballot initiative signatures being blocked from the pandemic. We won because we adjusted, we kept fighting, we pivoted, and we pivoted again. First toward online signatures, then toward deliveries at the doors, then towards the Black Lives Matter protests, where we gathered 1,000 signatures a day. And because we would not relent, because we have confidence in our class based on our perspectives, we made the seemingly impossible possible. We must bring the lessons of the victories to the working class to empower future struggles. In the context of a downturn in struggle in Ireland, alongside a surge of Sinn Féin and the Greens, we retained one of our seats in Parliament and also ran a courageous campaign in Dublin West in spite of losing the seat. When we lost the 2018 Amazon tax fight through the capitulation of the Democratic Party politicians, we said we would be back, and we were true to that promise. We will be back for our seat in Dublin West also. We launched a global initiative on the climate crisis last year. These are youth who will lead the titanic battles to come. Struggles around the climate catastrophe will continue to lay the ground for the radicalization of the new generation of youth who are concluding that there can be no solution on the basis of capitalism, that the future of human civilization is tied to replacing capitalism. But as we have seen with the victories we won recently, it will not be automatic. The role of our revolutionary party will be critical as the clock ticks on the ruthless mathematics of feedback loops and tipping points. We actively intervened in workers' struggles as they moved to fight for safe working conditions in the context of the outbreak of COVID-19, launching initiatives globally, including Workers Speak Out. In China and Hong Kong, revolutionary socialists have courageously fought in increasingly difficult conditions. We are forging a new international that can rise to the challenges of this historic period. Not a loose amalgamation of sections that convenes for annual reports, but a genuine international that hammers out its perspectives in debate, that launches international initiatives, that rapidly pivots in the torrent of social upheaval in capitalism's crisis and agony. Because that is what our class needs, a world revolutionary party that can lead struggles, raise consciousness through those struggles to expose the bankruptcy of the system, and the need for a socialist alternative, and to develop the wider forces needed to overthrow capitalism. There is no final crisis of capitalism, as Lenin explained. In spite of its current agony, one that will last far beyond the pandemic, as it was far deeper rooted than the pandemic, capitalism will recover and linger if there is no authoritative leadership with mass organizations capable of leading social revolutions. And there will be attacks. Jeff Bezos and the ruling class have certainly taken note of our recent victories. In 2018, they succeeded in repealing the Amazon tax. This year, a section of the establishment has just launched a recall campaign against our Marxist city council position. If the recall campaign is successful, it would force another election next year. First, they need to win in the courts. We take this attack very seriously, comrades, and are preparing our defense. There is no shortage of combustible material in this period. The coronavirus pandemic has exposed the bankruptcy of the political parties of the capitalist class, with unemployment levels not seen since the Great Depression, and a determination to force workers back in unsafe conditions, children back regardless of the conditions in schools. As Marxists, we recognize we must connect always to the complexities of consciousness among workers. Our message cannot simply be no return to work or school. As Marxists, we point the working class toward the path to win a safe return, safe conditions, with an insistence on working people having a veto, with teachers' unions and parents fighting in solidarity, fighting to tax the rich, First, to fully fund childcare and the criminally underfunded public schools, and to fund the expanded needs in the pandemic. The Red State Rebellion of teachers, starting in West Virginia in 2018, set the stage for a rebuilding of a fighting labor movement, and it led to teachers being among the most prepared to fight against the coming wave of cuts. Both in the US and internationally, the austerity attacks on the public sector will make education a key battleground for struggle in the next period. The Democratic Party is being thoroughly exposed by its brutal austerity budgets in cities, its failed response to the pandemic, and by its attacks on the Black Lives Matter protests. This does not bode well for a Biden presidency, which will most likely replace the horrific right-wing Trump administration, which has been deeply undermined during this crisis. A Biden administration will also be one of crises. 100 years ago, the Bolsheviks had won the Civil War, defeating the invading 21 armies of imperialism. But they knew that the success of socialism in the Soviet Union was tied to the international revolution. We are at a far lower stage. The workers' movement and organization is far weaker, but we are preparing the ground as an international. We are small, but we are the seed of a future mass international, and we must find a way. We need to dedicate and rededicate ourselves to our political development, to our work in each of our sections, in each of our branches, in our roles, on our leadership bodies. It is the spirit of self-sacrifice alongside a serious and relentless Marxist analysis that has won every battle we have won. Comrades, fighting together as one organization, all out to win these highest stakes fights for our class is what we are here for. It is what is needed. Always, international solidarity and sacrifice will be needed. We are not a collection of sections or branches. We are one democratic centralist party leading the international working class. Humanity can rise above the many crises facing us through the leadership of the working class. And to do that, the working class, above all, needs a revolutionary leadership, an international Marxist revolutionary leadership that can smash all obstacles between our class and the socialist revolution. Thank you.
Even though the International Socialist Alternative was only launched a few months ago, we have deep roots in working class struggle around the world, on every continent and in 30 countries. We've engaged in the global climate strikes and joined the fight for a future on this planet.
Oggi è il 27 settembre e siamo qui in piazza Genova, stiamo manifestando contro il cambiamento climatico.
We are part of a new wave of class struggle for women's rights that has swept across the world.
We stand against Trump, we stand against sexism, so let's build a movement here in Columbus to fight for women's rights. Boa tarde, mulherada que resiste nessa chuva, que resiste ao governo conservador.
It might seem embarrassing to show a pair of thongs here in this incongruous setting of the doll. How do you think a rape victim or a woman feels at the incongruous setting of her underwear being shown in a court? When is this doll going to take serious action on the issue of sexual violence?
We're bringing pride back to its political roots and fighting for the LGBTQ community around the world.
Bei Flüchtlingen ist die Situation nicht anders. Polizeigewalt, Rassismus, Diskriminierung am Arbeitsplatz und auf der Straße, Abschiebungen und negative Asylbescheide. This isn't just a movement in Ireland, this is a global wave of trans people fighting back.
If we stand together, we can win trans equality!
We're fighting police repression and for a world without racism in the international uprising for Black lives.
We fight best when we are organized.
Enough was enough! Justice for George Floyd!
If the enemy is organized, then we best be too.
It's not just about these 4 damn cops. It's about the entire goddamn system. We are the ones that run this city.
中共政府以及美国政府。
The only way that we can defeat racial oppression is by defeating economic oppression.
We know that this is not exclusive to Minneapolis. We've seen this movement spread nationally and internationally. 50,000 people marched in Vienna, Austria last week. Building a multiracial, multi-generational working class movement to demand justice for George Floyd and end police violence and terror once and for all. Say it, man! George Floyd!
Even in the face of authoritarian regimes, we continue to organize for democracy and liberation for all.
This person check. Imagine it's him as hand grenade. Asphalt sheetrock serenade. Jack and Coke is a marinade, but we sober up quick at the barricades. Joint in my mouth, pacify. Everything out their mouth is pacified.
For democracy to blossom and grow in this part of the country, it's time for the Buhari regime to resign from this government and give Nigerians an opportunity to put in place a government that will begin to transform life for the mass of the working people.
That's right. Oh yeah. All right. Hell yeah. That's right.
Wherever we can, we support, actively build, and in some cases lead class struggle, fighting against exploitation and building a fighting labor movement.
This city has been building ships since 1791, and we're not going to stand aside and let that end.
Defender los derechos de los trabajadores no es un delito, Susana libre.
Τηρούμε τα μέτρα προστασίας, αλλά δεν μένουμε σε σιωπηλοί. Δεν αφήνουμε κανέναν και καμία μόνο απέναντι στην κρίση.
Soy Victoria, pertenezco al socialismo revolucionario y nosotros en socialismo revolucionario apoyamos completamente la lucha del colectivo de las auxiliares de ayuda a domicilio.
All of the closures that have taken place, Debenham's been the biggest, and the government has taken no action to save those jobs.
The Amazon tax shows working people do not need to play defense. We can and should go on the offensive and win big. I have a message for Jeff Bezos. If you attempt to overturn the Amazon tax, working people will go all out in the thousands to defeat you. And we will not stop there. We are preparing the ground for a different kind of society. And if you, Jeff Bezos, want to drive that process forward by lashing out against us, then so be it, because we are coming for you and your rotten system. We are coming to dismantle this deeply oppressive, racist, sexist, violent, utterly bankrupt system of capitalism. We cannot and will not stop until we overthrow it and replace it with a world based instead on solidarity, genuine democracy, and equality. A socialist world.
When we fight! When we fight! When we fight! Solidarity!
As many of you saw, the comments exploded and our donation site crashed. Good thing that we have a big team behind this rally that fixed a new site. Every contribution counts, and it is crucial that all members know that our economy and our economic work is a collective task. And the aim for this collection is not only the money, but also that every member knows this and gives some, however small or big. During this pandemic, it has become more and more difficult for many of the comrades to be outside, and they shouldn't be outside campaigning. In some sections, it has also become more difficult to organize due to state repression. And this makes it even more important, this appeal. And just during this rally, we have collected 32,402, and we're still counting. And I will give you the latest figures, but the comrades are still counting. And so far we have, and they are still counting, over 175,000 euros. So maybe, hopefully, we will double our target, and we need it. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you, Natalia, so much for all the numbers. And I want to remind comrades that whether the amount you gave was big or small, all of it is a sacrifice. So I want to close out and thank everyone for this historical week that we've had. And we will build our organization to be stronger than it is today. Now, don't forget, next Sunday, tune in to World to Win. It's a great way for us to stay in touch and up to date with our analysis. Comrades, stay safe and see you all next time.